Hi everyone, my name is Claudia and I'm with Time for Stamping. You can follow along with me on my blog, which is timeforstamping.com. And let me just tell you, the 4 in that title is the number 4, so it's timeforstamping.com if you're looking for it. On my blog, I have all the measurements for all of the cards that I make on YouTube. So if you want to create the exact same card that I make, or if you want to just have the measurements to create your own, again, go to my blog, which is timeforstamping.com. Today I wanted to show you a special card I made using the Branching Out bundle, and it has a cute little pine needles and branches that you can use, as well as some nice sentiments. Now, the thing that I love about this is it's not only for Christmas. You always think of the pine boughs as being for Christmas, but these are for all year round. Hello, happy birthday, just sending love, just for a friend, someone very special. So it's a great set to have, not only to create Christmas cards, which is what I'm going to do today, or for year-round occasions. Now, it comes with this stamp set that has a great set of label dies. You can see it has, let's see, 6 different sizes of this pretty label, which again has the stitching around it. And it has some berry stems, as well as this cute little pine cone and another little pine bough. Okay, let me show you these pine cones. They are just darling. I cut these out of gold foil, and they are the cutest little things I've ever seen. So I just sat down one day and just cut out a whole bunch of little gold pine cones with that one die. And I will be using this pine branch and show you how to use it to make it two-tone without using any ink on it. Okay, so this is the card that I have. Again, I've turned this into a Christmas card, and the sentiments I've used are from another new stamp set called Joyful Tidings, and this does have more Christmas sentiments on it. So that's what I chose to use for the sentiments and the greeting on this card. Now, if you can see, my pine branches have a little bit of snow on them, so I'm going to show you how I did that. It's a very easy thing to do, but again, it just adds another little layer of elegance to this card. Okay, so let me get this stuff out of the way. And my card base is basic beige, and this is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4. And it's just your basic A2 size card. Okay, and then for my first layer, I have Mossy Meadow. This is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this on. Now, I like to use Tombow glue. Many people like to use tape runners. Stampin' Up! Does sell a tape runner, which is very nice. It's called Seal, Stampin' Seal. So if you'd like to use tape runners, I would suggest that one. But again, I like using Tombow glue because it gives you a little bit of time to reposition if you need to. Okay, let me just pull you in a little bit. Okay, my next layer is another layer of basic beige. As you can see, I've embossed it with the Birchwood 3D embossing folder. Now this makes a really nice background for the pine bough. Just, you know, gives it a nice little bit of texture rather than having just a straight flat background. Okay, so you can see how nice that looks already. You've got your layer of basic beige, a layer of mossy meadow, and another layer of embossed basic beige. Now, I've already gone ahead and cut out, as I said, my pine cones I cut out of gold foil. And then I have some of the shorter berry sprigs that I cut out of real red. And then for the pine boughs, what I've used, again, is this particular die, okay? And I laid the die, let me show you, if this was a piece of pecan pie, I just put enough of it so that I would get the branch on it. You really don't need the little pine needles on there. So I cut out several of those, the branches, with pecan pie. So I have a few of these little branches. And if you're cutting it out and you have a little bit of the pine needles on there, just trim them off so that all you have left are these cute little branches, okay? And then I did the same thing, only this time using mossy meadow paper, and I laid it like that so that I was just cutting out the pine needles. Now these pine needles, actually, there are two different kinds of pine needles. They look very similar, but as you can see, they are just a little bit different in their configuration. They're the same size, but again, just a little bit different. So if you're a little bit obsessive compulsive like I am, for each of these branches, you would use one on one branch and one on the other so that they're a little bit different. Okay, so let's go ahead and start building. Now what I want to do here is put some nice branches coming sideways and down a little bit like this. And then my pine needles will be coming off of the ends of the branch. Okay, so one thing I did want to mention is if you're cutting out your pine needles and you have a little bit of the branch itself on it, just trim off a little bit of that. Leave a little nib on there. You can see on the die where you would be cutting that, just to give it a little uniformity. Okay, so let's see. If I put one here, you don't have to actually put it at the very end. You can overlap those a little bit. And again, I'm using one of these for one branch, part of the branch, and one for the other one for the shorter edge of the branch. So that would be like that. It's always nice to place your things on before you start gluing, just so that you see that you have everything exactly where you want it. And then I'm actually going to put a third one in here, like this, and then we would have the pine needles coming off of that. Okay, so I can go ahead and start gluing. Just a little bit of glue on here. Now, I would advise using glue rather than stamp and seal on something this narrow. Some people like to use the fine tip glue. I just go ahead and use my Tombow. It's just my preference. Okay, so I'm going to just put that right, going straight down like that. Okay, and then my other one here will kind of come off and up and over. And again, you can see just a few touches of glue here and there, kind of like that. Okay, and then I can go ahead and put my third one. It's always nice to use a odd number when you're using embellishments. Maybe like that a little bit. Okay, covering up the end of that stem. Okay, so I've got 6 little branches there that I can add my pine needles to. Now, as I said, I'm going to be having a little bit of snow on these pine branches, but I'm going to put these on first. I want to make sure I'm not, there we go. Whoops, that's the same one. I want a different one there. Just want 2 different sections of the pine needles coming off of each branch. I don't want the exact same little clump of pine needles. So one like that. Okay. Put this one down here. And here's my second clump of pine needles. This reminds me of the white pine, if you know what white pine branches look like. They have kind of little clumps of pine needles on like that. And they're very soft needles if you've ever touched them. They're not like bristly or picky like so many of the pines are. Okay, one there, and you can see how nicely this is all coming together. My second set of pine needles. Now this set bundle does have a nice, I'm actually going to put this one up a little bit higher so that it's not overlapping that one too much. Okay, so there's my pine needles. As I was starting to say, the stamp set does have a nice set of branches with the pine needles that you can go ahead and put on the branches there if you don't want to fuss around with the die cuts. Okay, so let's put this away. And then I have a little sprig of berries. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on. And again, this is a real red. Just a little scrap is all you need. And that will help cover up the ends of those branches, as well as add a little bit of contrasting color to it. Okay, so I have that. And then the next thing I'm going to do, I have these cute little pine cones that I made out of gold foil. So I'm just going to add a couple of those at the top to cover these stems. One like that. If you wanted to, I suppose you could put these up on dimensionals if you cared to do that. I'm keeping them all flat. Okay, like that. And then to tie it in at the very top, I made a little bow out of baker's twine. This happens to be early espresso, but you could use any color that you happen to have, even if it's just black or red or green. Let's put that knot, that glue dot right on the knot. And we'll just go ahead and put this right at the top of those pine cones. Just like that. Okay, and that just finishes that off really nicely. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is put my sentiment here. And I'm using, again, this is from the Joyful Tidings stamp set. I'm going to put the one on that says Tidings of Joy this Christmas season. And I'll be using, let's see, real red ink to make that. Just a scrap of basic white. Now I'm going to be using a circle die, and there are so many circle dies to choose from. If you have an older set, if you happen to have the stitched circles or deckled circles or anything like that, you can go ahead and use. And I am actually going to use, if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Now again, this is from the September 2025 Paper Pumpkin add-on. It has a really nice stitch circle that fits that very nicely. So I'm going to use that to crop out that greeting. And as I said, if you don't happen to have that add-on, you know, use whatever label die you'd like to use. I like the circle. I think it fits in there very nicely. And this is out of basic white. So I am going to put this up on dimensionals just to give it a little bit of interest here. And then we'll decorate this as well. Okay, so I'm just going to put this down here in this corner like that. And then I'll use one of these extra little pine needles that I have and put that down at the bottom here of the greeting. And that, besides decorating the greeting, it kind of balances out all the green that we have up there. We're just going to bring a little bit of that down here like that in this corner. Now I don't like this little stem just hanging there like that, so what are we going to do? Use one of these cute gold pine cones. These are just the cutest thing. I know if you get this set, you're going to be like me and you're going to want to cut like a gazillion of these out just to have on hand for whenever you make a Christmas card or a nature type of card. Okay, so now to make the snow on the pine needles, I'm going to pull you in a little bit closer. I have the refill of the Whisper White ink. Okay, and just a scrap of paper here. So all I'm doing is putting some of this on a scrap. And you can either use a paintbrush or what other kind of marker you happen to have. Now I happen to have an old chalk marker that has since dried up. I was actually going to use this for my snow, and when I went like this it was dried. So what I did again is just put this refill, the Stampin' Ink white refill, and I'm using this chalk marker. I'm just touching the edges of the pine needles. Now you can put as much or as little snow on there as you want. One thing that I would caution you though is this takes, you are putting this on a little bit thick, and it takes a while for it to dry. It's not going to dry instantly like we're so used to with our Stampin' pads. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that like that and touch all of these edges of the pine needles. And then once this dries, what you want to do is take your Wink of Stella and put that over the pine needles, including the white tips that you're making here. Now I'm not going to be able to do that for a while because again this ink is wet and it takes a little while for it to dry. But I just wanted to show you how to add a little bit of snow to your pine needles, and it just really, really, really makes this look Christmassy with the snow on the pine needles like this. And as this ink dries, it will lighten up just a little bit. It's not going to show quite as bright as that. At least that's what happened with my sampler. Okay, so I got all the snow on there. Just going to set that aside. You can see how that looks. Okay, isn't that pretty? Now, again, I can't do this right now, but if you can see on here how that white lightened up just a little bit, but if you can see, I added Wink of Stella to the entire pine needles like that. Maybe that's a little bit better. And it really, really makes it glisten like snow. Now the other thing, if you want to leave this like that, you can, or if you happen to have red sequins or red, I have, whoops, wrong card. I happen to have some red rhinestones, so I'm just going to place a red rhinestone on each of these berries here. And that'll add, again, just another layer of elegance to this card. Now this isn't a card that you're going to sit down and make, 50 of, for sure, unless you're very ambitious. But, there's always a few special people that you want to send something special to, and this would be the perfect card for that. Oh, that one just doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, and keep in mind that that white ink is wet, so you want to be very careful not to smear it. Okay, so that is the card front. Okay, so for the inside, you can kind of do basically the same thing. I have a piece of mossy meadow, which will go on the inside. It's always nice to have your layers to coordinate with what you've done on the front. So I'm adding this layer of mossy meadow, being careful not to lay that down because that white ink is still wet. Okay, but I have my layer of mossy meadow. Okay, and then for the inside of the card, I have my layer, another layer of basic beige. Now I'm going to bring that design in to the inside, so I have, again, one of the branches that I cut out. And again, this comes from the die that is all one piece. It has the branch as well as a couple of the pine needle bunches on there. So I cut the branch part out with pecan pie, and then I have the pine needles cut with mossy meadow. And if you prefer, a different color of green, if you wanted a little brighter to make it, traditional type of Christmas colors, you could use shaded spruce or garden green. I like the look of the mossy meadow combined with the basic beige here. I think it's a nice combination. Okay, so I have a couple of my pine branches there. Okay, and then we're going to add yet another little sprig. Now this one I'm not going to put rhinestones on since it's on the inside of the card. We're just going to glue it, if I can hold on to it. Just going to glue it flat. And again, just touching those little berries with a little bit of glue. And putting that over the end of the branch. And then one more cute little pine cone. And this is out of gold foil. So we'll just go ahead and put that like that. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment here with real red ink. And this is the other sentiment that is with the Joyful Tidings stamp set. And this one is at the bottom here. May the wonder and magic of Christmas fill you with delight. Okay. Again, I'm using real red ink. And I'm just going to put that kind of off-center there a little bit. And even though I'm not going to add rhinestones to those berries, I can go ahead and put snow on these pine needles. And again, just as a reminder, the ink takes a while to dry. So I'm actually not going to put this on the inside right yet until this is all the way dry. I don't want to take a chance and smear any of this ink. As well as, once it dries, I'm going to go over the entire little clump of pine needles with my Wink of Stella to add the extra glimmer to it. Okay, so there is the snow on that. Let me show you what that looks like. And again, you can see how that glimmers with the Wink of Stella on there. Okay, so there is my first attempt at using this particular bundle to make a nice Christmas card. I hope you like it. Hope you give it a try. Again, you can find all the dimensions and the supplies I used on my blog, which is time4stamping.com. 4 is the number 4, not the word 4. And thank you for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them on my blog, and I will get back with you. Thanks again. Bye-bye now.